My name's Lehman Addick. It is always an honor to be asked to share. I'm going to put this up because I might knock it off, so forgive me. Drugs. Let's see. It's always an honor to be asked to share. I love Cocaine Anonymous. And one of the reasons why I love Cocaine Anonymous is exactly what we did to begin this meeting. You know, I don't know about you guys. I go to a lot of AA meetings. Not a whole lot of fun in the beginning of some of those AA meetings. You know what I'm saying? I don't see a lot of that. You know, it's interesting. What you do see at a lot of AA meetings is people who come in and they say that they're just checking it out. You know, yeah, the doctor sent me here. The judge sent me here. You know, the wife sent me here. They think I might have hit my bottom. Nobody comes to Cocaine Anonymous because they're just checking it out. That's not what we do here, you know? I mean, look, we took a pickaxe to rock bottom, broke it up, and smoked that too. That's what we do in Cocaine Anonymous. And I love that because I can be honest about who I am and what's going on, you know? There's usually two stories that you hear from newcomers, especially about the disease. The first one is tragedy, right? Broken homes, broken families, trauma. That's not my story. I'm your typical middle-class Norman Rockwell, street kid, ride bikes and play baseball. My family was together until the day my dad died. I still have a great relationship with my mom and my brother. So that's not my story. The other story that you usually hear is loss, right? I lost my house, I lost my wife, I lost my kids, I lost my job, I lost my career. That's not my story either. I never acquired any of those things. And so I never had any of those things to lose. The reason why I think that's important is because the disease doesn't care. See, the disease doesn't care who I am or where I came from or how much money I got or who my daddy is. The disease doesn't care how I label myself or how I identify myself. The disease doesn't care about any of that. See, what the disease wants me to do is be terminally unique. It wants me to be different. It wants me to isolate. That's what it does. It wants me alone and miserable, and then eventually it's going to kill me. That's what the disease wants. And so it doesn't matter where I came from. It doesn't matter what my story was. My story's no different than y'all's. My man Justin, if he's still here tonight, he slaughtered it earlier, by the way. But my man Justin told half the shit I was going to say up here tonight. I walked out of here going, damn, what am I going to say now? Because the thing is we've all got 1,000 different stories, but we've all got the same story, right? And it's this disease. And that's what makes us all, one of us and each other in this community. That line in the book where it says we would usually not mix, Donovan and I would usually not mix. All right, Donovan's about 27 feet taller than I am. He's done a couple of stints in prison. I haven't. We would usually not mix. But I will roll with you until the wheels fall off, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do in this community. The first time I drank, I was 13. I had spent the night at a friend's house, and we snuck out and were roaming around the neighborhood aimlessly looking for trouble. And a guy that had gone to high school with my brother pulled up next to us and was like, yo, we're all partying at the house. Come on over. And like the book says, I walked into this high school college rager when I was 13 years old, and I've arrived. It doesn't get any better than this, right? And I got blackout drunk. From the beginning, I exhibited the disease. From the beginning, I exhibited this allergy, this phenomenon of craving, this once I start, I can't stop, this I want more. The book talks about the different types of drinkers. It talks about the moderate temperate drinker, the one who can take it or leave it alone. My mom is a moderate temperate drinker. And I've watched her pour a glass of wine. She might drink it, she might not. That bottle of wine will sit open in her fridge for a week and she won't even look at it. And I have no idea what that's about. That makes no sense at all to me. Drink the wine. That's why you opened it. Why do you only have one bottle of wine? I'm confused, right? True story. So I use the Zen pouches, the nicotine pouches, right? Because I finally quit smoking some years ago. I stopped at a corner store like 2 years ago, and I bought a tin of the pouches. And when I opened it, the pouches were defective. They had all burst open. And so what I opened was a can of nicotine dust. First thing that ran through my mind, can I snort this? I'm 12 years sober. Can I snort this? No? Yeah? No? It's different, right? It's different. I had dinner at this place a couple of years back. I was by myself and they put me at the side table along the wall. The beer list was right above me. There was 60 beers on the list because I counted them. That makes sense, right? Normal people are like, ooh, that's cool. Which one should I have? I was like, I'll drink them all. Sure, check, 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 check. That's challenge accepted. It's different, you know? And I need to recognize that and understand that, you know? So a couple of months passed and I made a new group of friends and they partied and I got high for the first time and started getting high. And immediately I got into some consequences, right? I failed off the baseball team and I almost failed out of school and I got in trouble and, you know, a lot of trouble for a Norman Rockwell kid, right? And so I stopped drinking and using. You know, I had my parents right on top of me and whatever. I can tell you that that was the only time in my career as an addict and alcoholic that I stopped drinking and using on my own. I think in retrospect, I was probably a hard drinker, right? You know, the hard drinker, the one that exhibits some of the tendencies of the alcoholic, he might die a few years before his time, but given sufficient reason, ill health, change of environment, warning from a doctor, he can stop and go in a completely different direction all on his own. Maybe I did that when I was 14. I don't know. My old man was a hard drinker. The story is that one day when he came home from work, Mom took my brother to go shopping and left me home with the old man. He tied one on and passed out on the couch. Woke up about 45 minutes later, and I was about 2 years old, and I'd gotten out the front door, and I was playing in the middle of the street. In the next 35 years, we who knew him and love him can count on one hand how many drinks he took, because he said, I'm never going to do that again. And he didn't. And I don't have any idea what that's about. I don't know about you guys, man, but I stole from my family and I stole from my friends and I stole from my jobs and I wrecked cars and I went to jail. I did all the things that we said we were never going to do. I drew every line in the sand, right? I got lines in the sand that'll walk me from here to Miami. You know, I'm not a hard drinker. There's something going on here. There's something different, you know? So the next time I started drinking and using again, I was 20 and I was going to college in Charleston and I was 3 years into a degree and I started getting high and drinking again because when I wasn't working, I was hanging out at the pool hall. I was hanging out with a bunch of criminals and drug addicts and kind of sketchy people. I don't know about you, man, but I'm not really comfortable around normal people. Just kind of putting that out there, you know? I got like 5 minutes with normal people. It's like sports and the weather. And it's like, why am I talking to you? You know? I'm comfortable around addicts and alcoholics and criminals. That's who I'm comfortable around. And the reality is my life in recovery hasn't really changed much. I used to be out 6 or 7 nights a week hanging out with criminals and drug addicts. Guess what? I'm still out 6 or 7 nights a week hanging out with criminals and drug addicts. We're just trying to do something different now. I'm just trying to go and do something different with my life today. That's what this is all about, you know? So, of course, I dropped out of college because that made sense because I had busier things to do, right? You know? I started working at a pawn shop, you know, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know if any of y'all know anything about Charleston, but there was this chain of pawn shops in Charleston called Money Man Pawn Shop. And I worked at 3 of them for a couple of years. And if you pawned anything between 97 and 2000, I'm probably the guy that robbed you. I'm sorry. It was what it was. I don't remember a lot about those years. The disease progresses, right? Like this is what it does. It keeps, you know, more and more and more and more and more. You know, most of those years kind of blacked out to me now. Like I get a few, you know, little spurts here and there and not real proud of any of that stuff, but it is what it is, you know? The next thing I can really put together, it was early '03. I was living out on Folly Beach and I had what I like to now call my first real red letter day in the disease, right? You know, so it was, here's how it works, right? Sunday morning, I woke up broke because Friday night I got paid. And so that means Sunday morning I was broke because that's how it works when you get paid every 2 weeks, right? So I woke up broke. I drove down to the corner market. I bounced a check for some beer. We wrote checks back then. I don't know if any of y'all did that. Bounced a check for some beer, went back to the house, started drinking. And around noon, suddenly I had this thought. I'm just going to go drive down to North Charleston 45 minutes from here and go and see my guy and get him to front me some dough. Vaguely in the back of my mind, Lee, you don't need to be driving. You're 6 deep on an empty stomach, you know. But reassuredly, I do this all the time, right? This is old hat. You know, it was a beautiful, bright Sunday afternoon. I lost control of my car on the interstate. And the car hit the wall, and it bounced off the wall, and it hit the wall, and it bounced off the wall again, and it backed itself into the emergency lane. And I kind of came to, and I looked to my left, and there was a dude, and he was standing on the crosstown, like on the interstate. And I looked behind him, and there was like a dozen cars just dead stopped, right? And he sees me come to, and he reaches over and he pulls on the car door handle, and the door opens. He said, "Hey, man, you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And he grabs me by my shirt collar, and he says, "You got to get out the car, man. The car's on fire." Okay. And so I get out the car, and I'm walking away, and I'm feeling in my jacket, and I got my cigarettes, but I don't have my lighter. And I turn around and look at my car, and my car is this flaming, molten, smoking wreck. And for 1 second, I thought about lighting my cigarette on the fire that was my car. See, now I know I'm in a room full of drug addicts and alcoholics. Normal people don't think that's funny. Let's be clear for a minute here, okay? Don't tell that story to your mom, all right? I have no idea how I talked myself out of that DUI. I had no license. I had no license on me. I had no insurance. I had no insurance on me. There was a six-pack on the front seat. I talked the cop into giving me a ride to a payphone to go call my mom. That's a true story, bro. I had no idea how I pulled that off to this day. See, you would think that any normal person would be like, something's got to give here, right? Losing the license and the repo and the SR22, and I had to go and move back home with mom and dad. Like you would think, but I'm not a hard drinker, right? Something else is going on here. So fast forward like a year or so, and I ended up working for a company called S&K Menswear. It was kind of like a mid-level men's clothing store in the 90s and the 2000s around here in the South. I don't know if you ever heard of them or not. They went bankrupt in 2008. That wasn't exactly my fault. It was what it was, right? You know. But I actually strung together a little bit of dry time because I wasn't sure if they're going to make me take a drug test or not. And then when I started working the job, I figured out they weren't going to make me take a drug test. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so then I started getting high again. Because I still couldn't put it together, right? I still couldn't figure it out. I had a dear friend of mine who once said that he spent a couple of years sitting at a bar trying to figure it out. I spent a couple of years, a couple of almost decades, sitting at a bar and sitting at a dope man's house trying to figure it out. And I never could figure it out. Now, with S&K Menswear, I went from Charleston to Augusta and Augusta to Spartanburg. I kept going to these different places. I was taking over these stores. I was managing these stores. Because one of the other things that the book teaches us is that the reality is we are amazing people, right? The book says that a sober alcoholic can do 2.5 times the work of a normal person, right? It's what it says. We are amazing people. We're wildly capable people. To do what we did for as long as we did, more out there running and gunning, that takes some discipline, right? It takes some effort. You got to have some talent. You got to have some ability. I can run a retail store blindfolded. I mean, that's old hat to me. Run my own life? Nah, bro. It doesn't work that way, see? It doesn't work that way, you know? And so I was going from Charleston to Augusta and Augusta to Spartanburg, and I was taking me with me. Right? The geographical change was not working. And I was having to find new and inventive ways to put my hands on money. You know, I started doing the payday cash advances and the car title loans. I had like 3 or 4 of those all at the same time, which is check fraud. It's kind of illegal. You're not supposed to do that. It is what it is. And I remember in 2006, I came home to Charleston to visit my family, and I met with the local, rep or whatever for the company, and I told him that if there was ever a store in Charleston that I could take over, I'd be interested in doing that. And about a month later, he called me and he said, "We got a store down here for you. We want you to run in Northwoods Mall," which is at the front of my neighborhood. I grew up in Northwoods. I cut my teeth there, right? And so I said, okay. And so I called my dad, and I'll never forget. I called my dad and I said, "Hey man, listen, they want me to take over the store in Northwoods Mall. It's mall holiday hours. It's going to be crazy. I got to flip the whole store over. I got to get it all in shade. I got to flip the whole staff over. It's going to be nuts. I'm going to move in with you. And then come the new year, I'll move out, get my own place after the holidays are over." And he said, "Sure, no problem. Fine, come on." That was October of 2006. I moved out in December of 17. Yeah, see, the math doesn't math there, right? What happened was, I moved back to the old neighborhood. I'm living with mom and dad. They're paying all the bills. I'm making really good money. And a week later, I call my man, and he's like, "Meet me at the bar at the front of the neighborhood." I walk in the door, and it's like a reunion. Like, I know half the people in the building. Haven't seen any of them in years. A dude that I went to elementary school with sells Coke. Yes, sir. Let's go. I have another dear friend of mine who always likes to, when he shares, he says, "You know how people talk about spiraling? We never talk about how we spiral up. We don't spiral up. right? We spiraled down. And those next 2 years were a spiral. They were an absolute whirlpool. It got really bad really fast. And about a year later is when the next red letter day in my disease comes up. It was a Wednesday night, and I told the lie that we tell. I'm going to have money tomorrow. And so my man in front of me said, no, right? I ain't going to have no money. Thursday rolls around, and I'm closing the store at 8:30, and I'm counting the drawer, and I'm on the phone, and he's like, where's my money? And I'm counting the drawer, and suddenly I had this thought. There's $1,000 in this drawer. Now, vaguely in the back of my mind, Lee, you don't need to be robbing out the till. But reassuredly, I run the store. They're never going to know. I'll put the money back. I get paid Friday. Let me go ahead and get my man's money. And now I got to go to the bar, so let me get a little extra. I got a new bank. Cash, anytime I wanted it. Another year passed, and I sat my parents down 2 days after Christmas to explain to them that I was a thief and a liar, because there was a half a dozen deposit bags hidden underneath the bed in my room, missing about $2,000 that I had no way of putting back. I was 32 years old, living in my parents' house with no bills to pay, and a car that I had bought from them on credit that I'd never paid for, and I had no way to put this money that I'd stolen back. That's failure to launch. There's something wrong here. Now, my parents, being good parents that they were, did exactly what most parents would do. They saved me. They gave me the money, and we put all the deposits back, and we got it all in there, and I didn't get arrested. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and pay off the payday cash advances and the car title loans and the credit card advances, because we've done all of that too, right? Look, if you spend enough time in recovery, you're going to hear about this thing called codependency, and it's a thing. I want to be clear. It's a thing. There's some great meetings for it. If you think that you struggle with it, I absolutely implore you to go and check it out. But I have to be 100% honest about who I am. I am not codependent. I am a world-class, top of the food chain manipulator. And I did that to my family, and I did it to my friends, and I did it to my bosses, and I did it to anybody that I could for many years, because that's what I do. I'm an addict and alcoholic. I am selfish and self-centered to the core. I want what I want when I want it. And as the book says, if being nice to you gets me what I want, then I'm going to be nice to you. And if being mean to you gets me what I want, you may as well be an asshole and get it over with, bro. That's how I operate. And so we put the house of cards back together again, and we made this deal, and every 2 weeks I would sign the back of my paycheck and give it to my parents, and they'd give me like $100. And I would spend 2 weeks drinking, dollar beers and smoking weed out of a dugout, because I'm still not going to stop, right? I'm still not correlating the issue here, right? Somehow, some way, this time my way is going to work. This time it's going to be different, right? Somehow, some way, I'm still obsessed with this idea that I can make this work. So a couple of months goes by, I get them paid back, everything's great. I get promoted and transferred to another store in Charleston, take over the biggest store in the city. And my parents said, hey, listen, we need to go up to Baltimore and check on your grandfather. My grandfather was 91 years old. He had been widowed for about 20 years. He'd been living in the same row house that he had bought since 1941. You couldn't have pried him out of the crowbar if you tried. And they said, we just need to go and check on him and make sure he's okay. And I said, sure, go, no problem. Everything's fine. Everything's great. They were gone, 2 or 3 weeks. And by the time they got back, I had blown through my next paycheck, $3,000 of the company's money. And I had quit my job because they won't catch me if I'm not there. That makes sense, right? This makes sense, right? I got arrested on Cinco de Mayo. I don't know if that's worth anything or not. Look, I'm not going to pretend to tell you that I went to jail. I got arrested. I spent 30 hours in our local county. Do I look like I'm built for prison? Let's be real for a minute, okay? Not for me, okay? I got very lucky. I got PTI. I had felony breach of trust charges on me, and I got PTI. And part of PTI was IOP, right? Everybody knows what IOP is, right? Why drugs and alcohol are bad classes? Yeah. Look, I mean no disrespect to the medical establishment and to the drug counselors out there. I mean no disrespect. They do a lot to try to help folks like us. But if they are not who I am, if they do not know what it's like to be me, if they're not one of us, they're not going to get to me, man. They're just not. At some point, I'm going to tell them whatever it is that they need to hear so they will think they helped me and then they will go away. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I did for years, right? I spent 2 years going to IOP. The first 10 weeks I went because I had to go for PTI, and the next 2 years I went because I knew something was wrong. I even signed a HIPAA form, and once a week I would go on Saturday morning, I would take a drug test, and they would call mom and dad, he's good, and I would go do 2 hours of why drugs and alcohol are bad classes, and then I'd go home and think everything's great. I was miserable those 2 years. It was brutal those 2 years. They taught me all about things like, hungry, angry, halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. People, places, and things. Triggers. I love triggers. I have one trigger, consciousness. If I'm awake, because I'm an addict and alcoholic of the hopeless variety. I still don't know it then, but that's what I am, right? 2 years, get all the bills paid, get the charges expunged, the fines paid, the fees paid, buy a new car from mom and dad that I kind of sort of paid for, went back to school, 2 semesters on the dean's list, right? Get my life in order. And then mom and dad said, hey, we need to go and check on your grandfather again. Y'all see this movie, right? Sure, go, no problem, it'll be fine. They were gone like a month. I made it 9 days. And then I walked back into the same bar and I started ordering Miller Lights from the same bartender. And 45 minutes later, the same dope man walked in the back door and I was stuffing cocaine up my nose again in the bathroom. And by the time they got back, I had blown through every nickel that I had. I was about to fail out of school, and they had some dude call in their house that they didn't know looking for me. Now, if you're a good addict and alcoholic like me, the first thing you got to do is get out in front of this, right? I got to mitigate the consequences here because I'm in trouble. And so, like a good martyr, right? First thing I did was I called my brother to apologize to him for ruining the Thanksgiving that we were about to have at his house. I swear to God, that's what I did. It's wild. My sobriety date is November the 21st of 2010. So like, Thursday, it was Sunday. Thursday was Thanksgiving, right? So he says, look, mom and dad are coming home today because they were coming home that day. You need to tell them what's going on and you need to go to a meeting. And I said, okay. One of the things that I've learned in recovery, super duper newcomers that got like a week, 3 days, 4 days, not really worried about super duper newcomers. They're going to do whatever I tell them to do because they got the doom right on top of them. They're in trouble. And if they think I have a solution for their problem at this moment, they're going to do whatever I tell them to do. So I did. I was like, yeah, sure, okay. I did it. I told mom and dad what was going on. I go bombing into Somerville. I went to a meeting that was a different fellowship. They did all of their readings. And after they did their readings, they said they opened the meeting with, does anybody have anything that they want to share before we start the meeting? I hurled all over those people for the next 20 minutes straight. I was a broken, ballin', blubbering, effing mess. I just didn't get it. The book says, right, how did we get here again? I'm pounding on the bar. How did I get here again? I was here again. I was there again, and I didn't know what to do. After that meeting, I drove home, and when I got home, my mom told me that my brother had sent me an email. And in the email, there was a phone number, and the phone number said, I think this guy's in Charleston, and I think he can help you. I want you to give him a call tomorrow. Again, I'm willing to do what anybody's telling me to do right now, so I'm in trouble. I said, okay, fine, no problem. And so I called him the next day. And maybe for the first time in a decade or so, I finally got honest with somebody, and I said, hey, man, look, I got a problem with cocaine and alcohol, and I don't know what to do about it, and I heard maybe you can help me. And he started talking 3-part illness over the phone with me. He started talking allergy, obsession, and spiritual malady over the phone with me. And he got me to another meeting that night. And at that meeting, I had my first real epiphany in 12-step recovery. See, I'd never gone to really real meetings before, right? I'd never really understood what this 12-step thing was about. I mean, again, you got to understand who I think I am, right? I'm looking at these 12 steps. I'm like, you think I'm going to do 12 things and my life is going to get better? Are you insane? Do you know who I am? That's not going to work. Ignorance prior to investigation, right? I had no idea what I was talking about. That meeting, they were reading page 64. They were reading the resentments. And after they got done reading, they started sharing, and this guy, he shared and he said, man, I did my inventory, but this one problem keeps coming up, and I keep talking to my sponsor about it, but it won't go away, and I don't know what to do about it. And another guy jumps in and says, well, dude, if you did your inventory, but this problem won't go away, and you keep talking about it and it's still there, you need to go back and write another inventory and take another look at it because you missed something. And in that moment, I got it. Oh, they do the steps more than once. Oh, the program's cyclic. Oh, that makes sense. I can wrap my head around that. Okay. See, this is a lifestyle. Recovery is a lifestyle. Drugs and alcohol are a lifestyle. Recovery is a lifestyle. If I want to do something different in my life, I got to go all in on this thing called recovery. I don't know about you guys. I was all in when I was out there running and gunning. Right? There's a line in We Agnostics that says we wholeheartedly met these requirements. I wholeheartedly met every requirement the drug dealer had. I wholeheartedly met every requirement that the bartender had. Right? I need to start wholeheartedly meet these new requirements that recovery is telling me about, these 12 steps. And that night, that dude that I called, who became my sponsor, gave me a big book. And I have my white chip phone list. I still have it. It's framed on the wall in my house. And on the front of it, it's got Doctor's Opinion 164. You got to read the book. The instructions to getting and staying sober are in the book. Oh, okay, I'll read the book. And so I read the book, right? 2 weeks goes by and he says, hey man, come here. We need to talk for a minute. You got a car still. I had a car. I don't know how I pulled that off this time around. He says, you need to be giving dudes rides to meetings. I said, okay. And I knew a guy who ran a sober house that I'd met at this meeting. I said, hey man, can I go to your sober house and pick up your dudes and take them to meetings if they want to go? And he said, yeah, man, sure, no problem. And so 5 days a week, I would call that house. Yo, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Anybody want to go to a meeting? Get ready. I'll come and get you. And I'd put 4 dudes in my car and we would go bombing down the interstate on our way to a meeting. Got 7 months sobriety between all of us. Hey, no, for real. That's funny, but I do want to say this. Look, I'm sober 14 years now, and I thank God for that. There's somebody in this room right now who's got 30 days who can kind of hear what I can say, but kind of can't because they can't see that far. But if you got 60 days, that 30-day person will listen to you all day long because they can see that. And that's real. And so I was able to talk to these men about stuff that I didn't, like I was hearing these dudes who had time, but I just couldn't see that far, man. Now, I don't know what happened to those other guys. I know one of them's not with us anymore. But I'm still here because what was happening was the foundation for recovery was being laid. The foundation for altruistic movement of helping another alcoholic, of going out there and doing the service work, of getting in the middle of this thing was being laid. I finally started doing my step work. That first step, right? Allergy and obsession, no problem, right? Powerless, allergy and obsession. I walk into a room anywhere in the world and be like, I got a problem with drugs and alcohol. Like Ray Charles can see that I got a problem with drugs and alcohol, okay? Like this is not a thing. But that spiritual malady, that life is unmanageable, I had to argue with my sponsor a little bit about that because I couldn't wrap my head around that, right? He pulled out page 52. He pulled the bedevilments out. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We can't control our emotional nature. We're a prey to misery and depression. We have a feeling of uselessness. We're full of fear. We're unhappy. We can't seem to be of real help to other people. He said, Lee, when you're out there running and gunning, are you having trouble with personal relationships? Yeah. Lee, when you're trying to get sober and just white knuckle and be good, are you having trouble with personal relationships? Yeah. Boy, isn't that interesting. See, it didn't matter whether the substance was involved or not. Right? Those bedevilments were how I could live my life. That was the best that I could do. The best that I could do was be in a position where I was going to go burn it all down again because I don't like how I'm feeling. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what's going on around me. I don't like you. I got to go. That's spiritually sick. There's no God in that. And that's what step 1 is trying to teach me. Let me be very clear. When you look at the 12 steps, the only step that doesn't talk about God is step 1. What we talk about in step 1 is the lack of God. All of the rest of the steps talk about God. But I got to realize that I'm living life without God right now. Self will run riot. I'm living life without God right now. And if I'm going to find God, if I'm going to get sober, I need to find God. If I'm going to survive, I need to find God, because every step has a promise, right? The step one promise is if I keep living in step one, I'm going to die. That's the step one promise, and I don't want to die, right? So then I move into step two, and step two, I love step two. It's my favorite step because it's very simple, but it wraps it all home. I have to work step two backwards. Came to believe that a higher power of our own understanding can restore us to sanity. The most important word in step two for me is the word sanity. If I think living in step one makes sense, that's crazy. Right? Living in step one is insane. Think about this for a minute. Everybody in here's got 1,000 insane stories, right? We all got 1,000 insane stories. Go tell one of your insane stories to a normal person. They'll look at you, right? They'll look at you like you got 6 heads, right? And then you're going to be like, dude, that was Tuesday. Wait till I get money, okay? But see, here's the deal. Until I accept and embrace that living in step one is crazy, I'm never asking anybody for any help, much less a God that I can't see. And see, my sponsor put me in a box on that too when I was early. He said, look, man, you can take God and chuck him out the window. If you can't do what I'm telling you to do, and I'm sitting here right directly in front of you, and you can see me and you can hear me, how are you ever going to listen to a God that you can't see? Now what? See, here's the deal, man. When I can embrace and accept that, then I got something to work with, right? Because it's nice to have an option when you done run out of options. Yeah, let's talk about God. And that moves me right into step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives to the care of God as we understood him. For the first time in my life, I'm going to go seek this new direction. I'm going to go seek God as I think I understand him. I have spent my life pouring money and jobs and women and status and stuff into this God-sized hole, and I wake up the next morning and I hate what I see in the mirror, if I'm even looking in the mirror. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to go seek God as I think I understand God. And this is where the beauty of the program comes out. This is not religion. This is God. Call it whatever you want. God, Allah, Buddha, Minerva, Zeus, Jupiter, Shiva, Ra, Yahweh, Jehovah, Father Time, Mother Earth, Spirit of the universe. Pick one. For thousands of years, billions of people have been seeking a higher power, and they seemingly have had really good lives. My life is hell right now. Yeah, let me get some of this God. Anything's got to be better than what I got going on right now. Let's go. And then that moves me into the inventory. Now I'm going to go and do the inventory, right? I'm going to get honest about how I got right here. How did I get here? I'm going to write down on paper everybody that I'm mad at. That's the easy part. Then I'm going to write down on paper all the things I did wrong. I did something wrong? Then I'm going to write down my sex inventory. Yeah, that's a whole different meeting. Then we're going to do a fear inventory because I'm not afraid of anything. I was afraid of everything. One of the reasons why it took me years to walk into these rooms is because I was going to walk into a room full of people that I didn't know, and you were going to know. And I couldn't handle that. I was terrified of that. You were going to know. And then in step 5, I go and I tell another man that. And I'm not going to tell you that I got saved, but I will tell you that I walked out of there a lot lighter. Man, that was nice. To just be done with it, to just be free of it all. It was so nice. And that leads me into 6 and 7. And this is where the miracle starts to happen. I want to be clear about this, right? Because it's 6 and 7. Now I'm going to go and talk to God. I'm going to go have a conversation with God, right? And I'm not having a conversation where I'm like, hey man, I'm in trouble again. Now I'm going to go have a conversation with him. Hey man, without you today, I'm going to feel like I'm not good enough. Hey man, without you today, I'm going to be afraid of what other people think about me. I'm going to be afraid that people won't like me and love me. I'm going to be afraid that I can't take care of myself. I'm going to be afraid that people are going to hurt me and nobody's going to want to be around me. That's how I'm going to feel without you today. And I don't want to live that way anymore. That's the conversation that I'm having with God now, right? And that's a miracle because when I walked in the door, I was broken and hopeless. And 6 steps later, I'm talking to God. If that's not a miracle, I have no idea what is. Matter of fact, there's a line in Doctor's Opinion, and it's at the bottom of it. It says, to recreate our lives. This is how I'm going to start recreating my life because I'm going to build this new relationship with God, and he's going to figure the rest of it out. And that leads me right into 8 and 9. Now I'm going to go and do these amends, right? I'm going to have these very difficult conversations. And I want to tell you a little story about amends. I made my amends to my family. I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. And it was a heartfelt, wonderful thing. But my dad had cancer. And a couple of weeks before he died, he just wasn't making any sense. Cancer does very strange things to people. And he was sharp as a tack all his life. And he just wasn't making any sense. And so we took him to the hospital. And they decided to keep him overnight. And so we were checking him in, and we got him into a private room, and we're getting him into the bed. And then in this one moment, he snapped lucid, and he realized where he was, and he realized why he was there. And he got mad at me, and he lashed out into me, and he laid into me, man. He hammered me. Like, it hurt. And I had to go out in the hallway, and I had to collect myself for a minute. And in that moment, I got it. You're sick, and I'm trying to help you. You're sick, and I'm trying to help you, and you are hurting me and lashing out at me. He did it to me for 30 seconds. I did it to him for 14 years. Amends has to be something that I grasp and understand. It has to be sincere. And when I live these amends and I embrace this world and I see it for what it is, then I understand how much I took from this world. And I know that we were good when he died, and then still in my mind, I'm paying that amends back, and I'm happy to do it. To give you another example of amends, when I got sober this time around, after the 2 years where I was taking 1 drug test a week and that wasn't enough, we made a deal that I was going to take 2 drug tests a week, because that way then I couldn't beat the drug test, right? Take one Wednesday night and Saturday morning. I took 2 drug tests a week for 4 years straight, because that's what they needed me to do. And I said, fine, no problem. My sponsor even was like, bro, I'd have a resentment against that. Look, whatever you need, right? Just take the test. It's fine. Because I want to do something different. I want a new relationship with my family. And so then this leads me into 10, 11, and 12. And I personally feel like 1 through 9 get me sober, and 10, 11, and 12 keep me sober. 10, 11, and 12 is just for today. This is what I do on a daily basis. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, because they're all coming at once, I pray, I call someone, I make amends, I turn my thoughts to someone who can help. Think about what your sponsor said to you when you first got into the rooms, right? When you were brand new. Hey, before you push the big red button and quit your job and leave your sober house and change your phone number and leave your girl and throat punch the boss on the way out the door, why don't you give me a call? See, step 10 is designed to keep me sober in that moment. It's designed to buy me 10 seconds because I need 10 seconds. I don't know about you, man, but when I get to a certain place, if you don't tell me what to do in the next 30 seconds, I'm out the door. That's all I know. I can't handle this. I know one thing, and it's go. It's get loaded. That's what I know. Without God in my life, I know how to get loaded. That's all I know how to do. Step 10 is designed to buy me 10 seconds to get me through that. And if I do what step 10 tells me to do, I will stay sober. And then that leads me into step 11, continue to improve my conscious contact with God, asking only for his knowledge. Hey, God, I love this question. Where else is God? Where else am I looking for God? If I'm not looking for God somewhere, why not? He's done all this miraculous work. He's gotten me sober. He's given me a new life back. But I'm not going to go talk to him about this relationship I'm thinking about getting into. I don't want to talk to him about this money. See, I can't negotiate with God. I can't say to God, look, man, you take the drugs and the alcohol, I'm going to keep the women and the money. I can't negotiate with him. That doesn't work that way anymore. Not if I want something new and different. And then that leads me into step 12. I'm going to try to carry the message because I can't make you get it. God knows I wish I could make you get the message. I can't make you get the message, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to try to practice these principles in all my affairs. So that means I have to practice these spiritual principles when it comes to my relationships, and when it comes to money, and when it comes to women, and it comes to family, right? And when it comes to pride and ego, and it comes to the future. You know, we're talking about emotional sobriety here, right? These are big boy things. This is the stuff that we deal with when we stay sober. We're not talking about drugs and alcohol anymore. I'm talking about life, right? If I don't do this life thing with God, I'm going to go back to the drugs and alcohol. Emotional sobriety is, hey man, you can't have that new job. You can't have that raise. You can't have that promotion. Matter of fact, we need you to do more work. Emotional sobriety is, I don't love you. I love you, but I don't love you enough to stay. Emotional sobriety is your dad's going to get cancer. See, there's no chapter in the book for that stuff. But if I do what this book tells me to do and apply these spiritual principles to those places, I will be able to get through that sober. That's what this is about. This is about being able to live life on life terms sober and be happy, joyous, and free. And that's what I want. I don't want to be miserable sober. If I was going to be miserable sober, I would leave. That's not why I'm here. And that's what this program has given me. This program has given me the ability to accept the word no. Big word, no. It's given me the ability to say no. Right, the ability to accept and the courage to say no, that's freedom. Those are powerful, powerful things. And I did not have any of that without God. There was no God in the way that I was living. And what the 12 steps are doing is bringing God into my life. Now, I can tell you all about the house. I can tell you about the company that I helped start. I can tell you about a lot. What I can tell you is that I can look in the mirror. I look in the mirror today. And I'm okay with who I see. I like me. I know what my purpose is in this world. My purpose is to help you. I don't care who you are, how you got there. I don't care what's going on. Find me on Facebook and send me a message. Get my phone number and call me. I will help you. This is what I do. This is what I live for. I have found my place in this world, and it's right here with this big book and another addict and alcoholic trying to stay sober. You know? I don't know how long I've been up here. I'll leave you with a couple of stories and then we'll go. So growing up in my neighborhood, there was this guy and he was the neighborhood badass, right? He was the neighborhood bully. He was the most likely to do 25 to life guy, right? He was about 4.5 years older than me. He was my brother's age. And one day when I was 8 or 9 years old, he beat my brother up in the neighborhood. So fast forward 25 years, and he reached out to my brother on Facebook, and they started sort of trading conversation, and at some point a phone number was exchanged, and there was a phone call that was made. This guy wanted to talk to my brother because he wanted to apologize to him from when they were kids for beating him up. And my brother was like, dude, man, that's 25 years ago. You don't owe me an apology for that. And the guy was like, nah, man, I'm trying to do something different with my life, and that was wrong. And I don't know if I can fix that or not, but if I can do something, I want to do something to make that right. And my brother's ears kind of perked up a little, and they kept talking, and it turned out he was in recovery. He was doing his 9th step. And at the end of that conversation, my brother said, well, look, man, if there was ever anybody in Charleston who could use your help, could I give him your number? And he said, absolutely. And 6 months later, that was the number that my brother emailed me. And that was the guy that I called who got me to a meeting and gave me a big book and sponsored me and took me through the steps, and he sponsors me to this day. You cannot make that story up, man. Hallmark doesn't write stories like that. Like, think about this for a minute, right? Like, what if? There's so many what ifs here. What if the guy was like, I don't need to make that amends. That's 25 years ago. What if my brother's like, I don't want to talk to him? What if that guy didn't beat my brother up? Like, do you not see God? Like, I see God in that. That is wild. You cannot make that up. 6 years ago, a friend of mine rolled up on this guy who was passed out drunk in his truck in a Target parking lot. And the window was down. You could smell the booze coming out the window. She wrote my phone number and his phone number on a piece of paper and stuck it on his dashboard with a note that said, if you ever need any help with drinking, give us a call. And 2 days later, he called us. And we chatted and whatever, and I sent him to Step Up Club, which is this local joint that we got. And he started going and hanging out and going to meetings. And I got some people out there. I sent some sponsees out there, you know. And every couple of months, I would hear about him, you know. I was just doing what I do, right? I'm just doing what we're taught. I'm just following directions. I'm just trying to help somebody. Right after COVID, I went out to the Step Up Club for a little shindig, and I went in the back to see some people and say what's up, and this girl was in the yard, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and I was like, I'm going to go say hi, and I walked out to her, and as I got closer, I realized she was pregnant, so I started chatting with her, and then that dude came up because they were married, because they had met when he went to the Step Up Club to get some help, because that's where I'd sent him. She was expecting their first child. And the first thing that he said to me when he walked up was, your phone number was in my window. Guys, you can have the dope back, man. Right? To be an ancillary character in the lives and the story that saves 3 lives, this guy thinks the world of me. Like, just because I just helped him, right? I just sent him to a place. I'll take all you got and more. You can have the dope back. I'll take all you got and more of that. That's the juice. That's the stuff. That's what I want now out of this world. I just want to be a part of that. Let me be a part of your life. Let me be a part of seeing you get better. Again, like I said, I don't care who you are or where you are, how you got there, what's going on, call me. You know, I can't give you mine. I wish I could give you mine. I can't give you mine, but I can help you find yours. There's people all over these rooms that can help you find yours. And God knows I hope you do. So my name's Lehman Addict. I thank you for your time.